Hey y'all, it's Chimdi. So in this video, I want to talk about 4 things that I have encountered now that I've been on a more alternative spiritual path, shall we say, that when I first encountered them, I was like, this is so woo-woo and so strange, and I'll take it with a grain of salt, essentially, to now essentially fully believing it, not questioning it, taking it completely at face value. And I think it's pretty fun because I was raised Roman Catholic, and that religion is known to be about following the rules and following the rules from a place of like punitive, like if you don't follow the rules, you're gonna burn, versus sort of like joy and love and peace and light and all of these beautiful things, right? Not to say those things are not a part of Roman Catholicism, but in my experience, the emphasis was not on it. And so to step outside of that kind of faith background is to be with all of the fears, both personal and ancestral and collective, that say to step outside of how we do it and to step outside of these, structures of authority is to literally not just put your physical body in danger, but to put your actual soul in danger. And so I think I'm just proud of how far I've come in terms of engaging with some of these alternative ideas. So before we get into it, shout out to my Patreon people. I love y'all. Thank you. Shout out to my subscribers. Thanks for hanging out with me every single week. And if you want some support showing up consistently and authentically as a creator on YouTube, I'm a creative coach and I would love to help you with that. You can put one-on-one time on my calendar, or you can join me in January for a group program I'm doing. It's a 30-day challenge to help you show up on YouTube. We're gonna do group coaching every week, live trainings, daily accountability on WhatsApp. It's gonna be a good time. You can join in the link below. All right, let's get into this video. So the first thing that was very strange to me when I first encountered it, but now I'm just like, whatever, is channeling. So channeling is this idea that you essentially connect to another realm, another entity, another perspective. And there's a lot of sort of different ways of thinking about it. Folks who do like mediumship are considered channelers. You also have folks like Abraham Hicks who does channeling. And I always thought, I really in the beginning didn't think much of it. I was always about, okay, what is the message that's being communicated, much less like the actual process. But lately I've been really into Daryl Anka, who channels an entity named Bashar, who apparently is him from another dimension. It gets woo-woo so immediately. And you essentially kind of connect to a gamma level in your brain, and anyone who kind of connects to that level, which is that sort of flow state when you're just like really in your creative energy and you're just kind of letting the light move through you, essentially, that is channeling. And so it's been really fun because in the beginning, like I said, just even think about someone who isn't you speaking through you is like so spooky. And as someone who was raised Roman Catholic, it's like straight up like devil demon type stuff, right? Where you're like, who is taking over your body and speaking through your mouth? I've never watched The Exorcist, and it's because the idea of that is so scary and freaky to me. And I'm like, why would I voluntarily watch a person be possessed? Like, that's not my idea of a good time. And I think channeling, especially because folks will like change their voice and change their affectations, and they truly do sound like a different person is coming through them. It can be very, very spooky if your only framework for that has been, straight up exorcist style possession. And I think being exposed to channeling in many different forms, and I think ultimately the channelers that I listen to very consistently are communicating a message of love, of following your bliss, of, just being like prioritizing how you feel and prioritizing feeling good. So it's not anything that would be construed as like demon devil worship type stuff. And often they say, like, if you are connecting to something and it's saying something other than love and encouragement and support, like, you maybe want to stop hanging out with those entities, But it's pretty fun because I measure my comfortability with esoteric spiritual stuff based on how comfortable I am listening to it without headphones when my sister is walking by, because my sister is much more in the traditional She's actually in the Baptist faith. Like, she does much more like standard. We go into church every Sunday, you know. There's no feminine energy in God. It's a he, capital H, all that kind of stuff. And so I know I'm at a place where I'm not feeling like ashamed or uncomfortable about a spiritual idea when I know I can just listen to this. I can listen to Daryl Anka talk about channeling Bashar and seeing his triangle spaceship and be like, listen, it is what it is. The other idea that I always had a little bit less resistance to anyway, that I'm now fully believing in, is the idea of past lives. I actually did a past life regression and I put it here on my channel. I reflected on what it was like for me. And there's so much evidence of the fact that we've had past lives. I mean, if you don't know, just Google it. You know, that's not why I'm here. That's not the kind of resource I am here on my channel. But there was like a really interesting Netflix documentary where I actually interviewed like kids who had all these like experiences and references to another life that they lived, and there was kind of no way they otherwise would have known that information. All types of stuff like that. And I think if you don't have any sort of spiritual practice or believe in God or believe in anything other than our physical experience, it is very radical to consider that you are not just your body and that you are a soul sort of passing through an infinite experience and always expanding. And past lives are one of the main ways that you would have to sort of say, no, that can't be true if you don't believe in any of that. But I always thought it made sense because I'm like, obviously we're gonna have a good time and do this a bunch of times. And I also always had a sense that I did opt into life, if that makes sense. Like, I did opt into this experience. And so I'm usually not complaining so much about like, get me out of here. Get me out of this incarnation. You know, I didn't choose this or any of that. Like, no, I'm very much like, no. Love being alive, love this body, love this personality, love this experience. I love the drama of being alive, you know what I mean? Like, I love, like, it's just a good time for me. And so it always made sense that I chose this and that I would want to have as many different experiences as possible in this life. What is really fascinating to me, and I do still hold all of this relatively lightly, I feel like it's really just fun to consider as we go about our day-to-day life. But what's always so interesting to me about past lives is this idea that the things that we've experienced in our past lives could still be sort of holding on to us in this life through the idea of like karma, or just the idea of like just really intense experiences and memories that we haven't been able to shake off. And that was sort of the big thing that I understood through my past life regression, is I had these really intense experiences of grief that I had not fully processed, and they were continuing to echo into my present day life. The tricky thing, of course, is, you know, I can't pop into that old life in a concrete way. It's just sort of a meditative state. So in the same way some people are like, the dream world is just the dream world and not a whole separate dimension that we go into when we fall asleep, is the same way it could be for past lives, right? And so I think like anything, it's, does this framework help you? Does it provide some kind of peace or some kind of grounding or some kind of context that helps you be in this world more? And if so, great. And if not, you can let it go. Like, no one's making you believe anything. The next idea that I only heard maybe not even a couple of years ago, but now I'm like, makes total sense, is the idea of the akashic records. So this is the idea that essentially every possibility already exists and can be connected to and understood. And everything we do, down to, you know, any fleeting thought we have, is recorded in all space and time forever. And it's a very scary and spooky idea, especially if you have a lot of shame around the things you're thinking and you're like, I don't want nobody to know about that. And it's fun to think about the different ways spiritual folks will connect to that idea. So one, for instance, is the idea of like the quantum field, which is like everything and all of us is just these, you know, particles and this quantum wave and all that. And I've actually been hanging out with David Hawkins, who wrote The Eye of the I, and he's responsible for creating the levels of consciousness, and his framework for considering how we think about everything existing is so helpful because he kind of maps it to these different levels of consciousness. And when I first encountered it, things made so much sense to me. And it's essentially like there are different levels, different frequencies of consciousness, and we can hop up and down them as we please. with every frequency, there's going to be a set of ideas and thoughts and feelings and ways of being in the world. And so it actually isn't, it's sort of just like, if you were to go to channel 4, you're going to see what's on channel 4. If you're going to go to channel 10, you're going to see what's on channel 10. It's not, it's kind of impersonal in that way. It's just the frequency. And so on the lower frequencies of fear and guilt and shame, there's a sense of how people act when that's what they're sort of being driven by. You know what kind of thoughts people are thinking if that's what they're being driven by. And so it kind of makes sense. And so you can look at our world, you can look at individual people, you can look at our news, you can look at our history, and you can see like, okay, where were we in terms of our consciousness level, where things that back then made sense to us in terms of fear and guilt and shame, and now as we've shifted our consciousness as a collective, but also as individuals, we're like, oh yeah, when I was young, stealing did not seem like a big deal. And now I'm like, oh yeah, stealing is wrong. Don't do that. True story. Don't steal. Just don't. Just it's fine, you know? And I think the idea of the akashic records is really cool. And the way David Hawkins talks about it is he mentions this muscle testing idea, which he has proven, though I feel like I don't do it, but so I can't speak to it directly, but it makes sense to me, where essentially like things that are true make your body strong and things that are false make your body weak, or they kind of don't make your body strong essentially. And so you can be able to essentially judge anything as being true or false based on doing a simple muscle test. And essentially that is outside of anything you personally know about. It's not about your personal experience. And the only way that could be true is if there was this sort of quantum field, this akashic record of everything that sort of has this measure of everything and all of its consciousness. So it's very trippy. I'm not a scientist. This is very much an interpretation of the things that I have read and understood, but it makes total sense to me. And I'd be curious if it makes sense to you. And then the final thing that truly made me uncomfortable, and now I think it's fine, though I think it's probably the least actually comfortable I am with it, is this idea of light language. So in the traditional like religious structure, speaking in tongues is essentially light language, and it's essentially when, you know, there's just a lot of energy flowing through you and it's not really being communicated with words you understand, but it is carrying a certain frequency. Toning, I think, is also in that world of it's not being understood by the mind, but your energy is kind of getting this subtle transmission through the tones. And there are a couple of channelers who will channel light language, which, you know, it's the kind of thing where your mouth wouldn't really naturally make those sounds and form it, and you also aren't hearing words. It's just like, it kind of sounds a little bit like in Star Wars, those animals that just kind of talk like that, you know? And there's a channeler, Wendy Kennedy, who I feel like she's the first one. I think it's because her general vibe was very positive. She was the first one who was channeling light language, where I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna listen to this. I'm just gonna listen to this. I'm just gonna let this wash over me. And I don't have any kind of specific practice around light language. Like, I personally haven't tried to speak in light language, and I don't like have a daily practice of listening to it or anything like that. Though I do really enjoy tonings and just kind of like hearing like frequencies and things like that. But it's something that, you know, a year ago, 2 years ago, I would have been like, I do not need to hear alien gibberish. I don't know what they're saying and I don't like it. I was much more rooted in my mind then. I was like, I need to understand things. I'm not taking anything on vibes. And now I'm just like, you know what? You know, who is it hurting? I assume it's just some kind of benevolent, energetic spirit blessing me in their tongue, and I just receive it like that. And it's a real 180 from where I used to be in terms of that spiritual concept. So this is fun. I just wanted to make a video and just talk about sort of where I am spiritually. I feel like I was never a Bible thumper. I still have not read the whole Bible. And apparently, if you believe David Hawkins, only the New Testament really is vibing high. Because the First Testament is all about like a jealous, angry God who's like killing people, and you're like, that doesn't really sound like my God. So be careful, you know? But I mean, listen, an amazing thing about the spiritual practice and the spiritual work is that it's so individual. Like, it's truly a personal journey. And on your path, you find people who you align with. And as you continue to evolve and learn and grow and let things go, those people may not resonate with you anymore, and vice versa. And it's okay, we each get to have our own experience. And that's what makes being alive so beautiful. So I guess this is for the people who were similarly raised in more strict religious backgrounds and are finding themselves starting to ask questions or starting to like expand beyond that and feeling maybe a little scared about that. Just know that you are not the only one. I am here as well. I am also on this path. It's a good time. I'm still alive. I haven't been smited yet. So how dangerous is it really to explore alternate ideas? I had someone leave a comment. I made a video about how our external world mirrors our inner world, and someone left a comment being like, that's a devil worshiper saying, like something like that. And I just don't engage when it comes to that kind of stuff, but part of me wanted to be like, you believe in the devil? Like, you believe that there's a God who's all powerful and somehow that God can be challenged? Like, make it make sense. But there's no point, in my personal opinion, in like arguing about spirituality. It's sort of like, you get to believe whatever you believe. If you're feeling defensive about something, that might be a sign for you to be with why you don't actually sort of feel grounded in what you believe and you feel the need to argue with people about sort of what's coming up for you. And I know for me, I used to be more on the side of arguing with people, and the more I have kind of felt more comfortable and seen in my own life the benefits of my own belief systems, the more I'm like, listen, it's working for me. If it's not working for you, that's cool. Like, it's cool. We all get to hang out. That's the fun part, you know? All right, that's the video. Hope you liked it. Let me know in the comments, where are you on your spiritual path? Are you fully woo-woo? Are you dipping your toe into woo-woo? Are you like, the Bible is real, every single word? We're not questioning none of them things. None of them weird things. We're not questioning it. And you don't have to. You get to. All right, bye.